This is Josh Cunnings with EnviroNews California, and I'm here at the San Francisco New Living Expo once again in a booth that is quite interesting, to say the least. This involves how we leave this planet that we're all trying to protect. And I'm here with, your name is?
Jane. Hillhouse.
Jane.
Yes.
Jane,
Nice
pleasure to meet you. Josh Cunnings.
Thank you.
Jane, it says here that in the United States alone, we bury, along with the body, over 800,000 gallons of embalming fluid. Tell me about that.
Well, unfortunately, most people in this country aren't aware of the fact that you don't need to be embalmed at all. And it's part of the industry's way of making a bit of extra money by embalming you. So that's one of the things we're trying to change in the green movement, to at least educate the people so that they can understand their choices. And right now they haven't been given very good choices. So that's one of the things we're trying to do, along with all the metal and the concrete and other things that go into the graves, which are also not necessary.
This is fascinating, Jane. I have actually thought several times about, how would I like to go out, and thought about, what is it when they bury someone? We generally get buried in more fossil fuels, correct?
Correct. Yes, that is definitely true. And actually, even cremation has its problems too, because we have a lot of mercury in our teeth. And unfortunately, that is not collected in the chimneys at all. And in England, very soon, there's going to be legislation that will require them to capture the mercury, because right now it just goes out the chimney and down onto the ground or into the water, which is not very hygienic.
Good grief. So just us alone, let alone the caskets that we're buried in, are leaving toxic materials that are leaching into the groundwater.
Yes, I mean, they estimate that it's between 2 and 4 grams of mercury per cremation. And as the cremation rates are rising very drastically every year, because people think it's more environmentally friendly. So it's difficult.
And your founder started this in England, I believe?
That's right. This one line of caskets I'm carrying right now was started by William Wayman, who runs a company called Coffins. And he started it when he lived in China. And then he moved home to England. And he actually didn't start off making caskets, he was making furniture. And he ended up making caskets instead. And so now he is doing that full time, and he's just got into Australia. So he sells caskets here in Europe and Ireland and now Australia.
And how long have people been doing green burials in England for?
Well, he's been doing it 15 years, and I think it started quite a way before him. And although we have 250 green burial sites in England compared to maybe 13 in this country, which is not a very good record.
Tell me, what goes into a green burial? How does someone ensure that their final footprint is a green one?
Well, that's not very easy to ensure unless you're at Ramsey Creek or one of these other preserves where you are buried just as we used to be buried in the old days, with no formaldehyde, no embalming, no concrete, and no fancy linings to the caskets. Maybe just in a shroud. I mean, there are very, very few places where you can actually get buried in a shroud. In California, you can be buried in a shroud in 2 places, but that's about it.
That is so sad. That is truly sad that when we die, we actually leave a further toxic footprint in the ground that we've already raped and pillaged throughout our lives. And we've used fossil fuels throughout our lives, and then we continue to use fossil fuels in our non-life.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's a very hard equation to come up with a solution to. Getting land for a natural burial site is tricky. It's a long time. I know people have taken 5 years to try and get a piece of land with a proper, you have to have a proper conservation order, easement on them, so that they don't get built on ever. And so the chances of your doing that in under 5 years is really hard.
Is the government cooperating with the toxic funeral industry to prevent us all from being buried in the way that our great-grandfathers and grandmothers were?
Yes. Yep. In one word. I'm sorry to say that the industry has so much power in the legislative body that they don't want to listen to anything about death. It's mostly that, I think. I don't think it's total ignorance. They just don't want to address it. I mean, they just passed a law in Oregon where that now stops people from having a home funeral unless you have been to some kind of school, funeral school. And normally we can do that here in California. I've done a course in home funerals. You don't need a funeral home. You can take your relative home from the hospital and they can die at home. You can put them in a biodegradable casket and take them to the cemetery. You don't even need to rent a car.
What percentage of burials in this country are done in toxic caskets? Just about all of them? I mean, are you green burial? I mean, there's only 13 places in the country. How many places are people buried in the country? Surely it's in the tens of thousands.
Yes. I mean, I couldn't even give you a percentage. It's tiny. I mean, there are only about 4 casket companies that I know of that are even selling truly green caskets. Some of the large industry casket makers are claiming to be green, but it's questionable. I will have to say, though, that in May I have been invited by SCI to participate in a presentation to educate them all about my product and the green funeral industry.
What goes into the construction of one of your green caskets? Let's take a look at this here and tell me what are the materials this is made out of? How long do they take to break down into the soil? It looks very organic and it's gorgeous. This is something I would like to use in the as a piece of furniture in my house.
I know. Well, it's totally green. I mean, it's banana, pineapple, and rattan. Yeah, that's pineapple and banana, and the red is rattan.
You mean I can eat one of these myself?
Well, before the leaves died off, you could have, yes.
Tell me, what is the liner made out of? That's a natural cotton, I take it?
Yes.
It's just gorgeous. It looks really comfortable. It's a lovely place to rest.
Yes.
I'd be very happy if I got to make my final footprint in one of these, very warm, comforting, very appeasing to the mind, and the soul, the construction of this.
It's very well constructed. It's weight tested to 330 pounds, and they come in a variety of sizes. And you can nest them inside one another for shipping, so it reduces the carbon footprint.
That's just wonderful. Jane, you mentioned groundwater. I don't like the idea of, making my home in America somewhere near a human cemetery, not because I'm afraid of, human ghosts and spirits or anything like that. Not at all. I find that a very peaceful environment. But when you mention that the groundwater is getting polluted not just by these toxic caskets, but also by the actual materials that get left in our teeth at the end of our lives, I don't like the idea of living next to a cemetery. That means a cemetery is pretty much it's a toxic place in America today. Is that right? The groundwater around most cemeteries could be deemed to be, of course, groundwater makes its way from, anywhere to everywhere. But still, surely, a cemetery leaches its stuff into the groundwater and makes it a very unsafe environment to be around. Is that correct?
Well, it's a big argument, I have to say. I've heard a lot on both sides of this topic, and when people try and frighten people away from natural burial on the basis that it's going to pollute the groundwater, it's just not valid. It really isn't. And if you were to interview the owner of Ramsey Creek, the founder of it, who's a doctor, I mean, he'd laugh at you, and he'd say, well, where do you think the dead deer go? And the dead squirrels? And he said it's just not pertinent. And the industry are very good at putting the fear of God into you. You know, like you've got some terrible disease and you're going to get buried in the ground and then it's going to get transferred to the water. I mean, they're sensible about it. They don't put it right next to a stream. And that's true in England too. They're very careful that they don't put it right near a stream. But in terms of a general burial area, there's not really any concern, I don't think.
So cemeteries have become like modern-day toxic farms. They're pretty much monoculture. There's nothing natural about them anymore, correct?
Well, in the current kinds of cemeteries, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't want to grow anything in them, that's for sure.
You wouldn't want to have a vegetable garden. How sad. I would love, you know, I always buried my kitty cats, you know, 6 feet under, and hoped that they would break down, you know, prayed for their spirit and knew that they would break down and nourish my garden. But we're not able to do that the way we bury ourselves. Is it the wall of denial surrounding the whole death thing? Thank you. You noticed even I hesitated there, the word death. And we all, of course, die, and we're all forced to leave a final footprint, which is, by the way, great name. Where did they come up with that? How did that happen?
Well, I was going over and over and over it with so many friends, and then suddenly my girlfriend, who's been really helpful in my business and a great mentor, and she just said, oh, I woke up in the middle of the night and came up with Final Footprint.
Wow. That's brilliant. She woke up right. I love stories like that.
Oh, it's amazing.
So this final footprint that we're all forced to leave, there's a wall of denial surrounding death. And that's why Congress doesn't want to deal with cemeteries being so toxic. And also you said the cemetery industry is deeply embedded in our political process. They have a lot of political power.
They do. Definitely a regional power. I don't think there's any national legislation that governs cemeteries. I may be wrong about that.
Cemeteries are a huge business. Do you know how many billions of dollars are spent on them every year?
I wish I did.
Yeah, I wish I did too, but something tells me it's more than what I want to know.
Yes. I'm not very good at remembering the statistics, I'm afraid. But I know it's huge.
So Jane, we mentioned, you know, we've gone over all the some of the environmental aspects of how properly to bury ourselves. Tell me about what the costs are economically. Is this a more sensible economic solution to the costs, the gigantic costs of burials, doing it this way? It would seem like it to me. I mean, surely there's less materials being used in the first place in this process, correct?
Yes, I mean, there's certainly less raw materials because everything they're using with their caskets and their concrete liners is all natural. I mean, natural from the environment, but it has to be mined and brought and then just reused and thrown away, basically. But I think we have to be careful in saying that it's lots cheaper. I don't think it's lots cheaper. I think our caskets are, because I've been talking to people here and they've been paying $12,000 for their caskets, and that's just ridiculous.
$12,000 for a container for my body to not break down into the soil in.
Yeah, exactly right.
That is absolutely ridiculous. I'd have to have a chat with my self-esteem about being buried in a $12,000 casket. Good Lord, and to have it be toxic to boot, that's just ridiculous.
And, you know, then you've got the embalming fluid and that angle too. But we do have to, if you're going to have a natural burial site, we're trying to protect the land, preserve it. Although I did speak to some famous man here today who said, well, I'd support you and I would like to see a vegetable garden on top of your natural burial site.
What was the name of this famous individual?
Daniel Brinkley.
Daniel Brinkley. He's supposed to. He's an author about death. Didn't he die a couple of times?
Yes, and he was very impressed with what I was doing, and he said he'd really like to help my business. He's very into cremation, and he said it would be fine as long as you have a garden on top of the site.
As long as you have a garden on top of it. That's brilliant.
If we get a conservation order like the land trust companies do, you can't do anything on that land. You could bury somebody, but you wouldn't be able to have a garden. So,
that's just...
I don't know. I like the idea. I think it's great.
I love the idea of knowing that my body could be buried under someone's vegetable garden.
Yeah.
To me, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. We really appreciate you giving us the time to do this interview.
Thank you. I very much appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Get the word out.
For sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Get the word out.
Perfect.